If you're an intuitive person, sooner or later you're going to encounter another person who doesn't believe in intuition and is going to argue against you using your intuition. However, you're always safe and you can create safety and still live an intuitive life. And I'm going to give you 5 tips on what not to do to create safety and 5 key tips to help you actually create safety as an intuitive person when you're in relationship with people who don't believe in intuition. Hi, my name is Leah Chantel. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're really enjoying my content on my channel. And without further ado, I'll get into the content on how to feel safe around people who don't necessarily believe the same things you do without sacrificing your own priorities or your own needs as someone who is on the intuitive path. So my first tip, when you're dealing with a new person that you're getting to know and you don't know whether or not they believe in their intuition or if they're going to support you in following your intuition, my first tip would be don't initiate a friendship with somebody who has a different belief system than you do or who you're not sure about yet. That doesn't mean you can't be friends with them. I'm not saying that, but you don't want to force your beliefs or push your belief system on another person or try to prove yourself. It's not a wise thing to do, and it's actually better to just be honest about who you are, but let them come to you and initiate friendship or initiate a friendship with you. So my point is, you don't want to start new things with somebody who has a different belief system. If they were already in your life before and they are okay with how your life is going and the way you're living it, then that's fine. If it's a new person, definitely let them come into your life if they're showing interest and if they're showing support for your lifestyle. But if they're not actively showing that interest and support in you, then it's better to leave them alone. And now I'm going to get to tip number 2 on what not to do when you're in relationship with people with different beliefs. And the next one is that you should not invite them out to dinner or invite them out to hangouts. That's probably not a good idea when somebody has a different frame of belief than you do. I'm not saying you can't be friends or you can't hang out, but let them come to you and initiate the time and the place where you're going to hang out together rather than you initiate it for them. As empaths, we are tempted to kind of take over the process and come up with all of the different places and times and things to eat and making sure it's all good and comfortable for the other person, and we can be overly empathic. But to prevent ourselves from jumping into that situation, I believe it's better to just allow the other person to initiate a hangout and initiate a place that they feel comfortable, and then you can build a friendship from there. My third tip on what not to do when you're an intuitive and you're building a relationship with someone else is that I recommend you don't physically touch them. I know that sounds like a really weird piece of advice, but sometimes when you're touching other people, it's kind of like a form of unconscious control. Like, I'm going to control you and I'm going to convert you to what I believe in. And that's actually not a wise thing to do. If you're going to get physical with somebody, let them initiate contact with you. Don't be the one to initiate something with them. Just let them come to you. If they're interested in you and they want to be closer and they want to be friends, then let them hold your hand or hug you, but don't be the one that initiates, because sometimes 5 sensory people or people with different beliefs than intuitive people can feel uncomfortable with physical contact. And so it's better to let them show you what they're comfortable with rather than initiate and try to reach out. And that's especially a good piece of advice post-COVID, because sometimes people aren't very comfortable with hugs or physical contact at all. So let them tell you what their personal preferences are in that regard. My 4th piece of advice, if you're an intuitive person and you're starting a new friendship with somebody who doesn't have the same belief system as you, is to let them call and reach out to you and let them tell you about their lives and their problems, rather than you reach out to them and talk to them about your problems in your life. I would say it's better not to share unless they initiate and they really want to hear about your life. It's better to not share it and let them share about theirs instead. And also, when they do share, listen. Don't offer advice straight away. Just listen and see what they have to say about life. And if they ask for the advice, then you can tell them what you think your intuition would tell you to do. And then number 5 is don't text people like crazy when you're getting to know a new person, especially a 5 sensory person. When you're more of a 6 sensory or intuitive person, definitely get to know them and let them text you first rather than you texting them about whatever. I get these weird messages from intuitives who don't even know me online, who will sometimes direct message me and say, do you want a reading? And it's really creepy. I really don't recommend that. And as an intuitive, I just recommend that you put out good content and let people come to you. Don't send out creepy messages initiating contact or initiating readings with other people. Just let them come to you if they're interested and they want to know more. Don't push anything on them. Let them talk to you about it. Now I'm going to talk about the things that you should do as an intuitive person, especially when you're dealing with a mixed audience or you're dealing with somebody who's more of a 5 sensory or living in an ego-based experience. So the first do that you should do as an intuitive person when you're dealing with a person like this is to not become very emotional and don't show a lot of emotion in your speech or whatever you say. Keep things very neutral. Talk about the weather, talk about things that are going on in the world that aren't too emotionally sensitive, not politics, not religion, things that are like basically like the snowstorm that happened outside last night, or maybe there's a new coffee shop in town. Keep things pretty normal, pretty safe topics to talk about, and you should be in a good safe place with a 5 sensory person making conversation like that with them rather than talking about sensitive or personal topics. The next piece of advice that I say is a do for a 6 sensory person talking to a 5 sensory person is that you should take care of your own priorities and your own needs first before you take care of somebody else's needs. And that's really important in families. If you're a 6 sensory person in a 5 sensory family, make sure you're taking care of your own needs first and not the needs of your family and putting them ahead of yours. Unless they're very small children and they're actually dependent on you, allow people the space to do their own thing and allow them to take care of their own needs rather than you doing it for them. And the next piece of advice that's a do for an intuitive person that's helpful is that you want to pursue your own happiness first rather than try to make other people around you happy. And that's really important if you're an intuitive person in a 5 sensory family. Let them do their own thing to be happy. Don't try to do anything to make them happy. Don't try to bake them a cake or throw them a party or buy them a really expensive gift. Let them do the things that make them happy and you stick to the things that make you happy. And that way everybody's happy. And then my number 4 tip is that you stay financially independent from other family members who have a different belief system from you. That doesn't mean you have to cut the relationship or never talk to them again, but you just want to make sure that you aren't depending on them for rent or mortgage. You want to make sure you have your own place and that you are independent of whatever they can provide for you and that you're meeting your own needs. And then tip number 5, in order to have your own intuitive life and have healthy relationships with 5 sensory people, is to set really good boundaries. You want to leave the room when they're being disrespectful. If they start a fight or they start a sensitive political or religious topic that you're not comfortable with, change the topic. And when you meet with people like that, you definitely want to plan activities and games that are going to keep them away from those sensitive topics in conversation and put their attention and focus on something more productive, more positive. Rather than getting into the fight about who believes what, let them play charades or even Cards Against Humanity. Whatever games you like to play, play it and don't get sucked into the dramatic conversations. I hope you found all of these tips useful, the 5 don'ts and the 5 do's of how to have safe relationships when you're an intuitive person and perhaps you're in a 5 sensory workplace or a 5 sensory family. It is workable and you both can feel safe and comfortable in a relationship together, but you need to know the advice and work it inside and out. If you kind of do your own thing and you don't follow the advice that I've given you in this video, things could get a little bit messy because sometimes sensitive topics can come up that you disagree on, and then things start spiraling out of control. So make sure you do have those alternative activities planned that you both enjoy and can do together. And then you'll have a much more pleasant time when you're spending time together, and then you don't have to necessarily cut relationships with every five sensory person that you know as a sixth sensory, because that's not realistic, and you don't want to alienate other people or isolate yourself. That's not healthy either. So if you like this video, please press like. If you have any comments or great strategies on how intuitive spiritual people can relate to people who are more in an ego-based reality in a healthy way, definitely leave those comments. I'd be interested to know your strategies that have worked when people have different belief systems and how they get along. And don't forget, if you have an in-depth situation where you're really struggling with somebody in your life and you don't know how to fix it, definitely book me one-on-one for half an hour or for an hour-long session, depending on the depth of the problem and how much work needs to be done on it. And we can analyze the situation together, because the devil's in the details, and we have to find the right strategy that works for you in order to help you relate to your challenging family member or coworker or whoever it is in your life who's giving you grief. I hope you're all having a wonderful day, and take care. Bye now.